Hi guys, welcome back with the second webinar. So now we have a new, I would say, new member of the team. Jaka stayed on the same chair. So basically we have Joe Robbie with us, who is a lead R&D designer. So Joe, welcome. And basically the theme of this webinar will be, of course, you have seen in the webinar that was shown just moments ago, that we were talking about the classic and the classic kits, classic line. And you know that before we were talking about the EK-AIO, so basically the next step, if you want to go custom, it's actually the classic line and classic kit. Can you maybe just say a few words about classic line itself, so the intention of it? And
yeah, actually, like you mentioned, reasonable step from AIO upwards will be the classic line. That's why actually it exists. And that's why also the kits exist. So we tend to make it easier and all packed in one package, so that customer don't have to think to pick all the custom loop parts. And that's why the kits are here for. So we start with an AIO, of course, which is cooling CPU, and it's a starter pack. But then if you want to have a touch of DIY and custom loop, that's when you go with classic line. And also a little bit when we launched the quantum line, we said we have to keep the classical design of EK also in life. So that's why we actually go with the classic line, of course.
Good. Joe, you have anything to add to it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the customer experience as you move through the product lines, really, it's building on the confidence you get as a user, the experience behind building PCs. So in the beginning on air cooling, you're constrained to exactly what the original manufacturer gives you, and you're stuck in the physical specifications of ATX and PCI. And when you move to AIO, you can branch out from that, move your heat away from the motherboard. And then when you get to a kit, you have everything prescribed. You still have that safety of knowing you got all the right parts and it's all going to work together. It's all guaranteed to work together and pre-tested. And then when you go again, you start experimenting yourself, putting your own parts in, and then you're really in full control of what you do with the system and how it's going to operate, all of the characteristics.
That's a good point. Why name classic? Is there any special reason for it, or why classic?
It really draws from the traditional values of EK, the elegance and minimalist design. It's not too ambitious with.
So basically, the name itself came when we switched to the new design language. So we kept the.
Yeah,
classic.
Like Joe said, we kept the design from the beginning actually. And when we were thinking of the names, when you just look at the build, it just looks classic.
It's classic.
It's classic, yeah, and that's how the name popped out at the end. So yeah, it's that's
good.
the reason.
So what's new, Jaka, in these new kits? We know classic kits are now not from yesterday. So what's new in the new? Only D-RGB, or there is anything else?
Yeah, of course, the D-RGB is the main upgrade point here, but that's not it. With the new kits, we wanted actually to bring even more parts into it, so that the user does not actually spend time of searching and choosing other parts. So actually we made it at the end so much better that what you buy in this kit is all you need for starting your custom loop build. Like we added, for example, also the tube cutter and filling bottle to help you to fill the coolant inside, and then we put also a new a bracket to mount your combo unit in different positions. Also the the reservoir holder, so that we give options to people where to mount the reservoir. And of course, two angled fittings, which actually help pretty much with having more clean finish and not to have too much pains when mounting the tubes inside. So as you can see, it's not just about the lightning. The lightning is just to go with the trend, of course, with ARGB, but we always think more. So how to make it easier actually for the customer.
So when customer buys the kit, basically they don't have to worry about anything. Everything is inside, so they can they have all the tools needed, everything, so they can just
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good thing. How are basically, we were talking, basically this is brings up the next question. How about, how they are easier than other when you buy separate parts? One part of it is that you have everything in one box, but is there anything else?
Yeah, the first things first is actually the choice. So we put everything inside, like we said many times before, so the customer doesn't have to bother with choosing how many fittings, how much length of the tube, which pump, everything. So it's actually designed in 4 different models so that we really take care of this option. And not just that, so the right components that you need are inside. And at the end, the price also plays a big role here. As you guys know that a pretty good looking custom loop build can actually cost a lot, right? So when we put this inside of a kit, it's actually more affordable at the end. So we want to actually engage and actually try to convince the customers to scale up, to see that it's nothing to be afraid of. You can afford it, just try it, and that's actually the main reason. And of course, at the end, with the never-ending EK support, we have a lot of materials, tutorial videos for every part of the kit pre-recorded, and you can find it on web page, so that you really don't have to. Maybe someone doesn't want to read manuals and so on, and the videos are really actually helpful here. So at the end, it's actually all in one package together with every material you need, not just the parts and pricing. So that's actually the main goal.
I'm thinking about, before you sold me the AIO unit, I'm thinking about already, you're doing a good job. One question, will these new classic line CPU water blocks have the same performance level as the old Supremacy EVO line? Or with this, the performance will be the same? Or?
The internal parts are very similar to the previous line. We optimize them for reliability, durability, so if it comes to it, they're a lot easier to clean, a lot simpler, and we know these will last a lot longer. All the components now are machined from cast acrylic. There's no moldings inside. It's really simple, elegant design, which you would expect from EK.
And performance is not jeopardized at all. No matter. Perfect. One thing, Jaka, what are the models? What is basically the difference with all the models, within the models?
Yeah, so we actually have 4 models of kits. We divide them into 2 groups, so the S and the P series. And the only difference between the S and the P is the radiator, so the thickness of the radiator. Of course, the P stands for the performance one, and S stands for the slim line. So at the end, of course, also the number of the fans inside. So actually, you have to choose four different parts, so the S240, the S360, and the P240 and the P360. Which one do you want to choose? It actually depends how strong your CPU is, or how much water cooling do you need at the end. But
and the space probably also.
And of course the space in the chassis. If you don't have enough big enough chassis, you choose the smaller one, the smaller radiators. If you have big one, just go with a 360. You have unlimited options actually here.
We were talking also when you're moving to the bigger series, you can go. The loop itself can get really quiet.
Exactly.
So you
yeah.
can go down with the. That's a good thing. So what about when someone gets tired of the looks and wants to make a step forward, step further? So basically, okay, it's this one. Can I do something else with the? Not that I'm talking already. I know I still didn't buy it. So.
Yeah, of course you have unlimited options here. Actually, if you, of course, within the kit you only have the parts to cool the CPU. But all the parts are compatible with classic line parts also, when we offer also the GPU blocks. And at the end, it's also compatible with Quantum. So if you want to scale up and upgrade with anything, it can be changed to anything actually at the end. So there are no limits here. So you start with the base and then you upgrade. You can also add more fans, more radiators at the end, whatever you want. So this is just the starting point of custom loop water cooling.
Oh, cool. what's basically, when we just mentioned a little bit the quantum, we'll not be talking about quantum, but just basically what is classic besides quantum? If you have these two, what is, basically there is probably some confusion. Okay, we're talking, okay, you have the classic design. Is there anything else? Can you say maybe a little bit, is there any performance different? Probably there are some questions. Should I go for quantum so I have better performance? Of course, you have some exclusive, quantum exclusive, which is really optimized. These are, of course, highest performing blocks. But what about on average?
So the key difference is really the choice and the freedom which we prescribe. In the classic kit, you obviously have your safety net of knowing everything works right, but the classic line is really huge now. Already, it's massive. It includes a case, a distribution plate. You can take 2 radiators, as many blocks as you want, non-reference graphics card blocks now. So the range within classic is huge. Different color fittings, different size tubing, hard tubing. So just within that, there's massive scope to vary the loop, but you're still with all copper and brass parts, so you can go forward to quantum if there's one little piece, one detail that really catches your eye. There's nothing stopping you.
It's no problem. You can mix everything you want, so it's no big deal there.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. So one thing, question for Joe. I want a silent PC. Which option is better, PE240 or SE360?
Definitely the SE360. If that's the decision you have, if you're deciding between thickness or sheer frontal surface area, take the biggest option you can get. The thickness is far less significant. Where that comes into play is thicker radiators generally have less dense fins. So in reality, you can extract a huge performance from the slim radiator. And you need to pick the right trade-off between fan speed and density. So the slim radiator with low-speed fans performs really well, and the SE360 is definitely the way to go. In some scenarios, you'll get 50% more performance than the 240.
One fan more.
Just one fan more, yeah.
Makes sense. Question, where can I buy this sweet orange filling bag? It's a question.
Actually, right now it's only included in the kit, but in the future maybe we'll think to put it also in the web shop as a separate product. But for now it's only actually included inside the kit. So it's a nice color, of course, a color of EK at the end. So I know that everyone will like that, but yeah, that's the goal for now.
There's one question. Can you touch one of the differences between the classic line CPU block and its bigger brothers? It has a strong look of the supremacy blocks. Can you maybe just, there are any differences?
So while on the outside it may look bear most resemblance to the supremacy, internally it's closest to velocity. So surprisingly, it's the same simple construction that we opted for with this generation, and we get great performance from it, and there's obviously then another big step to magnitude. So the 3 tiers really, supremacy and velocity are the supremacy classic, should I say, and velocity are the closest related CPU blocks we have at the moment, and you get practically all the same cooling features, but you don't get the same, let's say, elegant lighting features as quantum, and there's less scope to customize, to swap out pieces.
And probably with classic, we are not covering that wide portfolio of the GPUs. That's also not that we are not covering. We want to make it easier for the customers. So more choice you have, more you have to know what you want to buy. So the one that are really, let's say, high runners also from the GPU manufacturer's point of view, these parts we are covering, right? Or just
Definitely, but even when you look just at the CPU block, in Classic we have only nickel Plexi. This is always the customer's favorite, and just having that one EAN allows us to keep the price competitive. When you go to Quantum, you get the choice, and then you can pick if you want it plated or not, if you want acetal, if you want all nickel, and
So
That's complicated for first-time users.
Yeah.
They don't know yet.
Definitely no. And we'll be talking about it also in FluidWorks afterwards. It's really complicated.
Yeah.
It really can get complicated. Also, when you talk about the, let's say, if you have only few options that you can choose, but performance is not an basically never compromise, whatever.
Sure.
From EK, never.
Jaka, maybe this question for you, or of course also Joe, you know a lot about this as well. How did market accept Classic at the beginning? In the beginning, basically, when we came out with the Classic line, how it was accepted? Was there a lot of challenges, maybe obstacles that we realized maybe after the launch itself that we maybe forgot about it? How was the journey, I would say?
Yeah, actually, the beginning it was quite a little bit confusion because we didn't have maybe Quantum as maybe spread the word to the market, but everyone saw just this. Nothing changed. We just made some modification on the alloy plates, and that's it. And there were really confusions. Why Classic? Why is it better? Or what is it different at the end? But now, like, let's say after a while, we can see a quite clear difference between Quantum and Classic. And what is the purpose of a Classic is to be entry level and more affordable and a little bit less compromised on the design. And then Quantum as a state of let's say art of modding. So that's actually our plan that we wanted to achieve that. So yeah, it was tough at the beginning, but now it's like way more clear than it was before. Yeah.
I have to mention something that basically we have also a special offer for the Classic. So when you order the Classic D-RGB kit, basically you receive free die pack.
Yeah.
So stick to just look in the shop and you will see. So we don't forget. We'll mention it again so we don't forget.
Yeah, Classic kits are actually this week on pre-order because we just launched them, and that's why we have this special added value to this product right here. So yeah.
What about, is there any plans for the hard tube? Basically, we are looking at the hard tube. Is there any plans for the hard tubing kits maybe? I know that this is quite a challenging thing. It's not for beginners, but maybe someone who likes the classic look, classic style, that it has an option, or this is just like you can buy it and you can do it because basically everything is compatible. Any kits? What do you see? Any?
Actually, I would say like this. The Classic kit already is totally compatible with also hard tubing. All you need to do is buy the fittings and the tube. But it gets more complicated with bending the tubes because beginners usually, this actually might be the toughest job for a beginner because it's not easy to bend the tubes and have the real nice corners and everything. That's why looking from the point of Classic kits, which is actually for beginners or for entry level, we don't see a reason to have hard tube kit also for that. We have also Quantum kits, and maybe this is an option to think about in Quantum rather than in Classic because it's more beginner oriented. But at the end, if you learn to build your first build, you can from that you come also to this one right there.
You can start with this, and then after that
exactly.
you can because we have to also say you have to have a heat gun for it. It's not just bending. It needs. I tried it once and I was not really successful. So yeah, I rather stick to the
maybe it doesn't look so much more beautiful than with the hard tube, but it's still nice. So.
What about the maybe different finishing of fittings? So maybe some different. We are currently offering a few options, but
right now we have nickel, and black. In Classic, this covers the entire EK portfolio actually, so still if you mix Classic and torque fittings from the Quantum line, they still fit together perfectly. So we have consistent finishes across everything for when people do decide, I want the torque accent rings to show a little color.
Seasoning, Quantum seasoning.
Just a little.
Are there any plans for the color tubings?
Like you mean the black
can
ones?
Be you can have flexible tube, but color. So when you have, for instance, transparent coolant inside, so the tubing itself is color.
as from the beginning, if we can do that and make wider portfolio, of course, but you would still at the end offer many options to the end user, and it would be confusing because, as I mentioned before, this kit can be also upgradable to the ZMT tubes, for example, from our web shop. So we don't see actually an option to offer a separate kit with a special different color of tubing. That's again upgrade maybe to the Quantum at the end. So this really needs to offer. We focus on the entry level and actually all-in-one pack, the starter pack, and then you continue actually.
Okay, you just mentioned ZMT tubing, so I know that basically we talked before also that there is saturation of the market with this RGB and this everything. So when you want to go a little bit more down, ZMT tubings are getting more and more popular. Popularity is getting back. And what about the, for instance, maybe 1013 ZMT?
Like I said, we keep all options open. Actually, we first have to see that how this will be on the market. What is the reaction? And again, if there is a demand, we will rethink that. But currently, right now, we don't have a plan.
Because of compatibility, you can get it.
Exactly.
One question: can we add a GPU block to this kit? Also, can the pump handle this loop, or we have to upgrade the pump?
There's no problem with running 2 blocks with this pump. All of our blocks are designed with a balance of restriction and thermal performance. So we don't just make the most restrictive block possible so it performs well. They're all really carefully managed to get a good balance. Consequently, the SPC is more than powerful enough at half speed to run a simple loop. And you can outgrow an SPC. You can make your loop too big. But that really comes from the number of components. So if you start to have more than 2 radiators, more than 2 blocks, lots and lots of rotary fittings with hard angles, then you can need to move up in the pump, but we have lots of options.
Options you can buy, and basically you can just replace the pump and you get it. Right?
Yep.
So talking about pump rest combo, can you change the size of the reservoir tube? Basically, are we offering just the tubes? Or?
Actually, of course you can. In Classic line we offer actually 2 options. One is 160 and the other is 260. Of course, inside the kit it comes the 160 combo unit reservoir, but you can upgrade it to 260 without any problems. You just swap it out. If you have enough space, there's a bigger reservoir option. So it's not a problem at all. The same as adding a GPU block or, let's say, swapping the color of the fittings. You just change it. One
interesting question. DDC pump. Basically, one is asking if you want, it's stronger pump than SPC, of course.
Yep.
Is it possible to just swap the pumps, or something else so you have to replace the pump rest combo?
The SPC volute in the reservoir is specific to SPC. So although the mounting is the same, it's not quite so deep, and a DDC won't fit inside. But actually, several Classic components do come with a DDC installed. The distribution plate from the 303 EK and a distribution plate from the PCO11, which fits the original 011 Dynamic and the XL. They both come with original Lang DDCs. So
basically, the counterpart of the pump is not the same, even though that it looks visually the same. It's not so. Or you can basically just have the kinetic pump with DDC and that's it, and put
not
it.
Not a problem.
Exactly. Okay. Are there any plans to make acetal version of Classic, or we stick with the? So maybe we are talking about ZMT acetal. Have a black version, midnight black.
Exactly. Like I said, it's we always keep options open. Right now, there's no plan for acetal. We've been getting a lot of questions about that. Of course, maybe with in the next, let's say, upgrades, when we will think about that, we will also offer acetal, but currently for sure there's no plan for that. But if there will be more and more questions and more demand, then we will
I can
think
tell you
about
there's
it.
a lot of questions about the options now it's coming in. So, yeah, just another question, which I think we already were touching it already. What about different options for fittings? So we're talking about what we have currently. This is it, and everything is compatible.
Yeah, we have 3 sizes of soft tube fitting and 3 sizes of hard tube fitting, depending on your taste, how bulky it feels inside the build as to which is best. Performance-wise, there's really no difference between any of the tubes.
So basically, is there any? I know that you were talking about all these webinars or these tutorials, videos that are available for the classic line. Is there also some about hard tubing, how to bend hard tubes, or we have?
For bending the tubes, we don't have any let's say specific videos for that, but we will sure make it because it's also a part for classic line how to bend it, and it's actually the biggest pain at the end to bend the tubes in the right way. So we are also in making all those materials.
Because
right
it's
now,
really helpful from my perspective. I would say when you have this and you are in the point of deciding which either go AGC or go with the soft tubing, you should be aware about the process of bending before you decide to go for it. Otherwise, it will be a disappointment, and maybe you will have maybe this will be your first experience with liquid cooling, and it will be because of the wrong decision disappointed, and maybe you can ditch. So it's better to look and to understand what's really necessary. Okay. Will you support new NVIDIA AMD generation of GPUs with classic lines?
Definitely. No debate.
No debate.
As soon as they do it,
So
as soon as they're ready, we're ready.
Cool. So basically classic lines. So guys will understand classic line is not staying behind the quantum. So basically both lines are availability. It's
going in the same direction.
Yeah.
Actually. So yeah, it's.
Okay. What about classic Threadripper blocks? Any plans for Threadripper?
Not right now. I mean, I think that's such a high-end product that it does really distinguish itself as a candidate for quantum immediately. I think that the entry point is several $1,000s for a Threadripper system, and so
it really comes together with the quantum line bed.
I think so.
High-end products go hand in hand together. So,
but surprisingly, it may seem counterintuitive, but there's nothing stopping you from mixing a classic kit with the quantum blocks. Actually, the velocity Threadripper block and the magnitude Threadripper block, which will come very shortly, they're very low restriction blocks. Because they're so big, there's so much coolant going through them, they have less restriction than the small blocks, and they will be perfectly happy in a P360 loop.
And also the SPC pump will handle it perfectly. It's without
Of course,
any issues,
less restriction, so easy.
yeah.
So, Jaka, I think one thing what I challenge you in the AIO, can we repeat the challenge for the classic? Because I'm getting more and more interested in the classic. Of course, most probably when I will be for the classic, we're most probably starting to look at the quantum at the end, but I try to understand.
Yeah, so we already solved before the answer that you have a gaming PC and you want to game, of course, and you want to have the best performance product. But now maybe I can convince you with the other way that if you want at the end your PC also to look very good with all the parts, this will be actually the answer here, right here, because you are a beginner. You said, okay, I need an AIO, and now you are already sensing what the water cooling world is, and the next step actually is this right here. So try to make it a little bit DIY, and then you will fall in love actually in the building PCs. And at the end, I think you are also a potential customer for Quantum. So
I feel really confident.
Yes, yes,
one
of
one
course.
thing from the assembly of the CPU, it's straightforward like it's on EK-AIO. So basically, the biggest difference is that you have to fill it, and basically the rest. So there is a certain fear that's going on with the how am I sure that this will not leak. So as we already talked, we have leak tests so that we are able to, let's say, test the loop itself before we fill it up. Is there any other way, Joe, let's say when you connect everything together, if you don't have the leak tester? So
Definitely. Even in the kit, we provide you all of the tools to do it right. So you have a bridging plug for your power supply and a special adapter to run the pump off the motherboard. And you can have your power supply well away from the coolant, long cables out to the pump, and just run the whole loop. You should do this with all of the hardware assembled. If any coolant should get onto your hardware, leave it to dry for a day in a nice dry environment, and there will be no damage. So
basically, you say also when you run, do you recommend that we basically run just the cooling system without the power on for
just the pump power.
just the pump power,
Yep.
and then so you leave it circulate, and then after one day or basically look.
Yep. And this goes hand in hand with bleeding the system. Every time you build a new loop or make a change to a loop and coolant comes out, you need to make sure when the coolant goes in that you get all of the air out. Because as you know from air cooling, it's struggling to conduct the heat. So if you get air trapped in your block,
in the block itself, the
then
cold plate.
you'll have temperature problems until you get 100% coolant through there.
Yeah, that's true. And anyway, I think just to say, system itself, I would say the computer system, especially for the beginners, it will not get damaged if it will just shut down if something's wrong with for maybe some air is trapped in the CPU block, or maybe let's say, okay, now it is easy because you see if there is a air trap inside, but you don't have to be afraid that you will immediately kill. It will just shut down because I would say
Yeah, definitely. All components, GPUs, CPUs have an over temperature protection, and they'll shut themselves down before you're in any trouble. But remember to get your loop running right before you start your extreme overclocking parade.
Are fans on EK-AIO and Classic Kit the same?
yes, they are. So it's a Vardar S fan.
So they went 500 to 2200?
Exactly, yes, the EK-ARGB. So yeah, they're the same fans, both on Classic Kits and on the EK-AIO itself.
So I have one last question. We'll be wrapping around now because the next webinar is coming soon. Can you use the top reservoir as a reservoir cap as an inlet for the reservoir? Or?
Actually, not in this case. You need a few more accessories to do that correctly. When you have the coolant dropping onto the top surface, this introduces a lot of air, and it also creates an opportunity for the flow to backfill when the pump is off. So you need to have an internal extender in the reservoir, which you could get from the Quantum line.
And it fits
or
in the same
or the traditional EK line, and this would fit with your classic parts. So it can be done, but you need to buy the right parts.
So if somebody wants to do it, they can contact our support, and support will help them and guide them how to do it. So and what to get.
Yep.
Perfect. I think we have to wrap up. So thank you guys, thank you Jaka again, and thank you Joe for really a good technical answer and discussion. And thank you for being with us. Stay tuned because we are coming back in 50 minutes again with Joe. And I think Attila is joining us. And you again, I think.
Yeah, I'll be on that show.
With hot topics. So we'll be talking about a lot of interesting stuff. And again, in 1 hour later, we are back with also with FluidWorks. So stay tuned for today. A lot of things still to come. So thanks a lot for listening. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Right.